Thank you guys all for joining us in the room and for everybody watching out there in digital land. And thank you, Richard, for
glad to be here.
coming out today. Like they said, we're going to talk for a few minutes up here and then take some questions from you guys. So think about that. And I guess, you're out playing. You're playing tonight, right?
People, for the last couple of years, people would say, "So you on tour?" And I go, "No, I just do shows." Because the idea of touring was always, you put out a new album and then you go out and you spend a year touring behind that particular project. And now, whether I put out music or not, I just go out and play shows because it's like the most fun thing I've ever gotten to do. So I actually ran into Bono in an elevator not too long ago. And we were talking and he said, "Are you on tour?" And I said, "No, I just do shows." And he went, "We need to do that."
They got a little more operation.
I said, I don't think you guys can really pull that one off.
Yeah. But it's still fun. It's still,
it's more fun than it's ever been.
You structure it, set it up in a way that's...
It's more fun than it's ever been because I tour in so many different configurations now. I do a lot of shows like I'm going to do tonight, or this whole weekend actually, where it's just me and this.
Right.
And it's solo acoustic, but it's not one of those serious singer-songwriter shows, It's just people in the audience hanging out with me for a couple hours. And I do the same thing sometimes with a string quartet or with a full orchestra. And I still do band shows. So, it never gets boring.
Yeah.
And it's never been more fun for me than it is now because of the catalog of songs. And because it's not about trying to prove anything anymore. It's about just going out and playing these songs that people want to hear that I love to sing.
I was going to ask, I know you're doing this set as just these solo shows. What do you feel like, do you feel like you're still learning things about these songs? Do you feel like approaching them this way, stripping them back down to this, that there are facets that are still revealing themselves to you?
I don't know that the songs I've been singing for so long reveal new elements to me anymore, but I did have to deconstruct them for these kind of shows. And some of them, like the rock songs, like Satisfied or Don't Mean Nothing or She Even Should Have Known Better, with just an acoustic guitar, I had to reinvent them a little bit. And so that was really fun for me to just break them down almost into the form that they were in when I wrote them. But it's not so much that I'm still learning. I'm still learning about performing and about my own artistry, And so I find that I get more comfortable and more. It's like anything else that's great in your life. The more you experience it, the more fun it becomes. And
I don't know if you make the distinction in your head, but do you think of yourself as a writer or a performer? If you've got to fill it in on the passport, job line, songwriter.
I'm a songwriter who sings. I consider myself a songwriter who happens to sing. I know that a lot of people that know who I am think of me as a singer, and they may not even know that I wrote all those songs or that I've written all these songs for other people. But the songwriting was the most important thing to me before I had a record deal. And so I was writing songs for other people, from the time I was 19. And it's still the most important part of what I do. It's not the most fun, but
different satisfactions.
It's the most important, yeah.
Yeah. Are you somebody who, do you write all the time?
Yeah.
Do you write all the time, or do you need an assignment and a target?
I like being under pressure to get a song finished, but I write something every day. It's not like a concentrated, I sit in a room and write songs. It's not that. But it's pretty effortless. There's always a piece of a melody or a line of lyric, and it can be at dinner with my wife, or it can be driving in my car or in the shower, or but some piece of a song comes to me every single day, I think.
And do you feel, did you kind of always have that, or was there a kind of learning how to grab that, harness that in your head, or what?
Well, I don't know if this is what you mean, but anybody that's watching or here that's interested in writing, period, whether it's a songwriter or just a writer, there's this thing that everybody knows about called writer's block. And I experienced that when I was I just moved to LA, and I was 18, and I was trying to get things going, and all of a sudden I hit this writer's block where I just couldn't come up with anything. And my father was a jingle composer, so he wrote the music for TV and radio commercials and was really successful at it. So I thought, I'll call my dad because he'll comfort me and he'll counsel me and explain to me and like give me the great pep talk. So I told him, I said, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I've got writer's block. And my dad said, dude, you're so full of shit right now. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, what did you go out there to do? What is it that you aspire to be? And I said, a songwriter. He said, so write songs. He said, look, you're at a point now where you have to write something. And it may not be a brilliant thing that you write, but if you write whatever, you're going to find 4 bars or 2 lines that you're going to go, oh, that's pretty good, and you'll build on that. But if you just sit there and go, I have writer's block, and I swear to God, Alan, that was the last time I've ever experienced that. I just, it's just something that is pretty effortless for me.
You mentioned your dad, and you obviously grew up with a lot of music around you all the time. What's the first music that you remember hearing, remember making an impression on you?
Hang On Sloopy. You guys know that
Straight
song?
rock and roll garage song, yeah?
That was that's apparently, and I do have vague, I probably remember from the stories I've heard about it, but that was the first record that we used to have this, I was born in '63, so this would have been like 1964 or 65. You'd get a 45, a single, and you'd feed it in, almost like an old CD in your car kind of thing, and it would play the vinyl record. And I wore this record out. For whatever reason, that song really captivated me when I was 2. And then from there, it was the Monkees and the Beatles, and at that point, I was just swimming in it. I was listening to everything. Luckily, both my parents, played the music of the day constantly. There was always music in the house, whether it was the music my dad was composing or just, it was my dad that played me Hotel California. It was my dad that played me Paul Simon's Still Crazy After All These Years, which is probably the album that made me want to be a songwriter when I was 12. He played me The Stranger by Billy Joel. So my parents introduced me to so much music that really knocked me out.
And was there, that moment where you thought, this is what I need to be doing, or was that always in there?
It was always there. I started singing professionally when I was about 5 on these commercials that my dad created. And my mom sang on a bunch of them too. So it was a family business, and I would get out of school to go into the studio and sing commercials for Peter Pan peanut butter or Nestle's Crunch Bars or whatever. But it was, I grew up in a recording studio, and so I always knew I wanted to be a singer. And up until I was in my mid-teens, I just wanted to be a rock star. And then the songwriting really kind of dominated my attention. And I wanted to just make a living as, making music. And the fame or the rock star thing took a little bit of a backseat. I mean, I still wanted to experience that, but I knew I'd be happy as long as I could make music for a living and not have to do any other job.
Do you feel like, was there a song you wrote, or even a part of a sign, or a line or a hook or something, where you could feel like, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to be pretty good at this? Was there something that felt like that?
I don't know that there was it was just a gradual, I started writing songs for the same reason that a lot of people write songs. I wanted to get laid. I wanted to get the attention of that particular girl, and felt like that was what was different about me, that I could sing. I used to watch these Elvis movies when I was a kid, and every Elvis movie's plot had the hot girl that Elvis was trying to get with, who pretended like she wasn't interested in him, and then he would sing her a song, magic. And so I was like emulating that, forgetting the fact that I didn't look like Elvis Presley. But that was the motivator. That was the motivator at the time. And so then it all sort of became this thing that I did, and then like I said, it just took over. And I loved writing songs so much that I think I just unknowingly, like anything else, you do it and do it and do it, and then you look. All of a sudden, you realize that you're getting pretty good at it. But I don't know that there was any particular song that was the pivotal, where I could point to and go, when I wrote that song, because there were songs that I wrote that became big hits for me. Should Have Known Better, Endless Summer Nights, really early on in my songwriting process, that every label rejected and every publisher rejected. And then they went on to become really big hits from the first album. So it's not like I knew that those songs were going to be hits. I just liked them and I believed in them,
So as you said, and I assume that especially in the solo shows, you're playing your stuff and the stuff you've recorded and these amazing songs that you wrote for Luther Vandross and for Keith Urban and for all these amazing people. Are there different switches in your head that you use writing for you or for somebody else? Do you write stuff and say, oh, I better hold on to that one's for me?
No, I don't do that.
Do most of the others come in as assignments? I mean, what's the relation between the stuff for you and the stuff for...
The major difference is if I write something that's personal to me, that feels like something that I needed to say, then I don't ever think about pitching it or sharing it with somebody else. That's just my song. And the people that I've written songs with, 99% of the time, they've reached out to me and said, I'm working on a new project, So if I get in the room with whoever, Keith Urban, Vince Gill, Chris Daughtry, whoever it is, it's not about what I want to say lyrically. It's that I'm trying to help them say what they want to say. And so it's actually kind of freeing because there's no ego attached to it at all. There's no, early on I remember thinking sometimes, well, I would never sing that line. And then I thought, but I'm not singing that line. So it doesn't, if they're okay with it. It's like, I've written lyrics with Keith Urban that we'd go back and forth about because I'd go, I don't get this, or I don't. But when I realized, well, he totally gets it and he's into it, then I just go, okay, great. So I'm much more about making sure that it's quality and making sure that the music and the melody are just as great as they can possibly be. But I don't get confused about that. And I've never written a song with somebody else and thought, I really wish I had held on to that for me. I'm happy to do all of that stuff.
I want to make sure to ask because I'm curious about it. There's the phase, I guess, when you were in LA where you were doing backup singing, studio work, a bunch of that, and working with some of the, with Madonna and with some of the biggest superstars. What did you take away from that experience? I mean, that's, that session work and backup work is such doing a specific job.
Yeah.
Is there something that, you took from being around those guys and watching them work that you held on to?
It was amazing. Probably for about 4 years, that's how I mainly made a living. I wrote a couple of songs that became successful, but I went to, it was like going to record production college, but like the Harvard of it.
Right.
And everybody from Madonna, watching her, because when I worked with her, I just worked with her on one song, but she produced the session. And so it wasn't just standing there singing background vocals against a track with the artist in the room. She was saying, no, can this part here, and she was so amazing to work with. Like, she really knew her stuff. And I worked with great producers and great artists, and I worked with some producers who didn't know what they were doing, where I had to sort of take over and get it done. And it was like the greatest education I could have had, so that when I did start making my own records, I felt like I was really prepared, and I knew what I wanted to do.
Is there a thing that you could, if it's that vision or focus or whatever it is, those who really get to that place, is there a thing that characterizes them? Is there a thing that sets them aside from, the rest of the world?
It's probably, if anything, you got to be able to see you got to see the big picture. You got to be able to focus on the minutia. You got to be able to focus, like when I write a song, to me, it's not like this linear melody, or I hear the whole record in my head. I hear the whole production. And so my job as a producer is to transfer what's in my head to the speakers. And so you got to see the big picture. You got to hear the whole. It's like seeing the whole movie, right? But then along the way, you've got to refine every guitar part, every kick drum, the sounds of everything, the vocal stuff, and it's an incredibly fun puzzle to put together. Producing is my favorite, is the most fun job that I have. I don't do as much of it anymore, but that's always been the most fun for me because it's creating music as opposed to recreating music. I love performing, but it is in a sense recreating what I've already created. But when I'm in the studio and you hear something come to life for the first time through those speakers, it's unbelievable.
Last thing I want to ask, and then we'll go to you guys. I know playing the catalog and lining all your stuff up together for these shows, you're getting a sense of your legacy, your body of work. Do you thinking about sort of Songwriters Hall of Fame? Do you feel like you've gotten the recognition, the acknowledgement from the community, the greater universe?
In certain ways, I have. I think that a lot of the industry recognizes me as the songwriter that's done a lot of good work and been consistent. The Songwriters Hall of Fame thing. I don't know. I guess I'd love to be in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. But people always ask me, like, what's your favorite song you've ever written? And I always go, the one I'm going to write tomorrow. And I really feel like I'm about to come into a whole nother gear as a songwriter. So it's all fun for me. The only thing that's kind of a drag is that when I write new stuff that I'm so excited about, I'm also really respectful of my live audience, because I go to concerts too, and I know what you want. You don't want to hear a bunch of new songs. You don't. You want to hear the hits. You want to hear the stuff that you want to, and I get it. And luckily, I love to play those songs too. So I always just, I sneak in 1 or 2 new songs, but I wish I could sneak in 20, But then the audience would be like, dude.
It's an exciting place to be that excited about what's coming.
Yeah.
All right, let's take some questions from you guys or from out in the universe over here.
Hi.
Do you have a favorite musical moment in any of your songs, a particular chord, harmony, or lyric that just gives you the chills?
Of my own?
Yes.
Yeah, there are a few. There are a few songs that, it sounds so egotistical to say it, but there are a few songs that I never get tired of hearing. One of them is a song from the last album a couple years ago called Eyes on Me. That was one of those things where I was just getting ready to go out to dinner and standing at the door, and this melody came into my head, and I knew that the chord progression was unlike anything I'd ever written, and I knew it was really special and gorgeous and sexy, and so I never get tired of hearing that song. I still hear on Sirius a lot. I hear this song called When You Loved Me that I wrote with my friend Matt Scannell that was a hit a few years ago for me. It's another one that, from the song to the production, I'll never not crank that song up when I hear it on the radio as if it's somebody else's song. And then there's a song called Through My Veins that I wrote about losing my dad that still really moves me and resonates with me. So yeah, there are a few, definitely.
That's there.
How's it going, Richard?
Hey, how are you?
My name is Debbie. You spoke about writing music and everything, so I'm curious, when it comes to writing music, do you ever go in with a sort of like a goal that you want the project to accomplish, or does the goal always change for every sort of project that you're associated with?
It's a good question. Generally speaking, my only motivation is to write the best possible quality song I've ever written. But it's also true that, like, especially if I'm going to go in with another artist, especially now, my other goal is I want this to be a massive hit song. Because I've had, luckily, a lot of hit songs. It doesn't suck.
It's
And
not
I
so
want
bad.
more. I want more. I want more #1 songs. I want more really successful, universally accepted songs, because it's a little bit of a drug. You know, when you've written so many songs and you have had the experience of writing something for all the best intentions, and seeing that song become massive, and everybody knows that song, and it happens over and over and over and over again, that's something you don't want to stop experiencing. You know, it's as long as that doesn't overtake the quality, which has not been a problem for me.
Can do one more from right there.
Hi.
Hi. So you've been to a lot of different cities with tours and now just with your concerts. What are some of your favorite cities to go and play in?
My favorite
Cities
cities.
to go play.
You know what? I've had shows every time I'll pick a city or two, I'll go and maybe it won't be quite the same euphoric party that it was the last time, because every audience is different. So I can play, like I used to say Detroit, for whatever reason, every time I would go to Detroit, it was just such a love fest. London, same thing. But I've also played, I played a week ago or 10 days ago, for the first time in years, I played in Fargo. I want to play in Fargo every freaking night. They were, every single moment from the minute I walked out on stage to the minute I waved goodbye was perfect in terms of the audience reaction and participation, and it was like I was at a family reunion with my closest people in my life. And it was this incredible crowd. So it's not geographical, you know. I just want to play everywhere and hope that they get it, that they are, you know. Sometimes there's just an energy in the room that's not to be controlled, and those are the best shows. I don't want people to necessarily just sit there quietly. I mean, maybe during the song itself, for an acoustic song, but it also depends on the song. Sometimes, you know, most of the time the audience just gets it. They know when to yell out and start clapping and stand up and scream and throw things, whatever. But as long as they're involved, as long as I'm reaching, as long as I'm moving them in some way, I don't care where I am.
Everybody, thank you for
Thanks,
watching.
guys.
Thank you for watching at home. Thank you, Rich.